He wanted a cook. The Apache woman said she came to be his wife. Then everything changed. The twin suns of Iron Mesa scorched the sky, painting the dusty plains in deep orange and red. A wind full of metallic grit swept across the settlement of Dusthaven, rattling the metal roofs and stirring the few hardy travelers who had chosen to stay behind. Out here, life was harsh. Law was thin, and survival depended on a mix of skill, courage, and luck. On the far ridge of the mesa, a lone figure appeared, riding a mechanical horse that hissed steam from its joints. The cowboy was tall, his long coat catching the sunlight like a dark flame. His hat shadowed most of his face, but a hint of a scar ran down his left cheek. Jax Maverick was a man that the locals spoke of only in whispers. Some said he had fought in the Galaxy Wars, others swore he had killed more men than they could count. Whatever the truth, no one dared approach him. Yet today, he rode straight into Dusthaven. Children scattered at the sight of the mechanical horse, and even the miners paused their work, eyeing him with a mixture of fear and awe. Jax's boots hit the dust with a rhythm that seemed more like a warning than a greeting. When he reached the center of the settlement, he slowed, surveying the small cluster of buildings. It was then that Alara Voss noticed him. She stood behind the counter of her small trading post, wiping her hands on a rag. Unlike the others, she did not step back. Her brown eyes, sharp and curious, followed the cowboy. He moved with a quiet confidence, the kind of presence that could command a room without saying a word. Alara had heard the rumors like everyone else. They said Jax Maverick was untouchable, dangerous, maybe even unstoppable, but she felt no fear. Instead, a strange sense of interest stirred within her. He stopped by the post and tilted his head, glancing at the sign above the door. Trading post? His voice was low, steady, carrying the weight of someone who had lived through far too many battles. "That's right," Alara replied, her tone careful but not afraid. "Looking for something in particular, or just passing through?" Jax's gaze moved to the shelves of supplies, food rations, water canisters, repair tools, and a few simple trinkets. Then he noticed a small, battered drone lying on the ground outside, sparks flickering from its circuits. Without hesitation, he stepped off his horse and knelt beside it. Alara watched as he carefully adjusted the wiring, his movements precise and practiced. There was a gentleness to it that contradicted the rumors surrounding him. After a few minutes, the drone whirred to life, its single red eye blinking in thanks. "You fixed it," she said softly, impressed. Jax stood and shrugged, brushing dust from his coat. "Didn't seem right to leave it out there," he said simply. For a moment, silence fell between them. Alara could feel the weight of the stares from the townsfolk, but she did not step away. "I'm Alara Voss," she said finally. "Trader, mostly. And you are?" "Jax Maverick." His name hung in the air like a warning. "I've heard of you." Jax's dark eyes flicked to her, sharp and assessing. "I doubt it's all true," he said quietly, almost to himself. Alara smiled. "Rumors always exaggerate, don't they?" He gave a faint nod, then returned to his horse. As he mounted, the mechanical joints hissed, sending a small cloud of steam into the hot air. "You should be careful who you talk to in Dusthaven," he said, his voice low but carrying an edge. "Not everyone likes strangers." Alara frowned slightly but didn't reply. Something about him made her trust him, or at least made her curious enough to want to find out more. The days passed slowly, each one marked by the relentless heat and drifting dust. Jax stayed in Dusthaven longer than anyone expected. He didn't gamble, didn't drink, didn't seek attention. He spent his time repairing old machinery, helping the townfolk with chores, and riding the outskirts of the settlement, surveying the horizon. Alara found herself drawn to him. She often found reasons to pass by his work, watching him quietly as he handled tools with care, his movements precise and strong. There was a mystery about him that she could not ignore, and each day the rumors in town seemed less important compared to what she was discovering with her own eyes. One afternoon, the sky darkened with a sudden dust storm. The wind roared, and the metallic grit made it hard to see. The townsfolk hurried inside, but Alara knew Jax would be outside. She grabbed a cloak and ran toward the edge of the settlement. Sure enough, he was there, standing tall on his mechanical horse, facing the storm head-on. The dust whipped around him, catching the edges of his coat and the brims of his hat. His eyes were steady, unflinching. "Alara," he called over the wind. "Get back inside." "I can't just watch," she shouted, waving him off. He shook his head slightly, but there was a faint smile under the dust. "Suit yourself. Just be careful." They watched together as the storm raged. In the chaos, Alara noticed something strange. A small glimmer in the distance, like a reflection of metal. Jax squinted and tightened his grip on the reins. Trouble, he muttered. What kind of trouble? Alara asked, curiosity mixed with concern. He didn't answer. His eyes scanned the horizon, sharp as a hawk. For the first time there was tension in his posture, a warning she could feel in her chest. When the storm finally passed, the settlement was quieter than usual. Dust hung in the air like a curtain, and the townsfolk emerged cautiously, checking their buildings and supplies. Jax dismounted, dusting off his coat. You okay? Alara asked. He nodded, though his gaze remained distant. I've seen worse. For the rest of the week, Jax's presence began to change things in Dusthaven. Miners worked faster, knowing he was watching, and travelers stayed clear of the settlement, whispering his name in fear. Yet Alara remained close. She began helping him with repairs, learning to handle the mechanical tools with his guidance. It was during one of these afternoons that she noticed the scars on his arms. They were faint but deep, running along his skin like the map of a forgotten battle. Alara's curiosity was stronger than her hesitation. Jax, she began carefully. What happened to your arms? He stiffened slightly, glancing away. Old wounds, he said simply. War doesn't leave much that's pretty, she nodded, sensing he didn't want to share more. But there was something unspoken in his eyes, a quiet pain, a history that the rumors didn't cover. She realized then that this was the truth about him, the reason no one dared touch him. He carried his battles with him, and they had made him untouchable. Despite this, Alara felt no fear. In fact, she felt a strange pull toward him, as if she could see the man behind the myths. And maybe, just maybe, she wanted to be the first person who didn't flinch at his past. The first part of their story ended one evening as the twin suns set behind the mesa, casting long shadows across Dusthaven. Jax stood on the ridge, looking toward the horizon, while Alara approached quietly. You staying long? She asked. He glanced at her, eyes reflecting the dying light. Long enough, he said. I don't usually stay anywhere, but something about this place feels right. Alara smiled. Good. Because I don't plan on letting you leave just yet. For the first time in Dusthaven, the untouchable cowboy felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in a long time. Trust, and perhaps even hope. As night fell, the stars of Iron Mesa lit the sky, and for the first time, Jax Maverick allowed himself to imagine a future that didn't involve running or fighting. A future where someone might see the scars beneath the surface and understand the man behind them. And Alara Voss had decided that she would be that person. The morning sun rose over Iron Mesa, turning the jagged cliffs into a river of gold. Dusthaven stirred slowly as miners checked their rigs and traders prepared shipments, yet an uneasy tension clung to the town like the ever-present dust. Rumors traveled faster than the wind. Strangers had been spotted near the ridge. Travelers whispered of a man in a dark coat, following Jax Maverick. Alara Voss wiped her hands on her apron as she watched Jax work outside the trading post. He was repairing an old water harvester, his fingers moving with precise efficiency. Every now and then, he paused to glance at the horizon, eyes narrowing. There was something different today, something heavier. Alara, he said finally, not looking up. Keep an eye out. Might be trouble coming. She frowned. Trouble? Here? What kind? Jax didn't answer. His focus returned to the machine. She noticed the faint glow of the cybernetic implants beneath the scars on his arms. Tiny lights pulsed under the skin, faint and rhythmic. He had never shown her that before. A shiver ran down her spine. There was more to Jax than Dusthaven had ever known. By midday, the stranger appeared. Dust kicked up as a sleek black hovercraft landed on the ridge above the town. Its engines hissed and groaned, drawing the attention of every person in Dusthaven. Jax stiffened immediately, stepping into the shadow of his mechanical horse. The craft's hatch opened, and a tall man in a silver suit descended. His hair was slick, eyes sharp and calculating. This was Kiro Vaunt, a corporate enforcer known for tracking down those who defied the megacorporations. His presence radiated danger, the kind that made grown men reconsider their choices. Jax's hand brushed the handle of his laser revolver, hidden beneath his coat. He didn't speak, but his muscles tensed like coiled springs. Alara stepped forward, keeping her tone steady. You're far from the corporate worlds, Kiro. What brings you here? Kiro's gaze swept the settlement. I've come for Jax Maverick. He owes the wrong people a favor, and debts don't stay unpaid in the galaxy. The townsfolk murmured, backing away. Some moved toward the safety of their homes. Dusthaven was small, defenseless. Yet Alara didn't flinch. He's part of our town now. He's not leaving. Kiro's lips curved into a small, cold smile. That may be so, little trader, but I don't negotiate with sentiment. Jax finally spoke, his voice low and dangerous. You want to fight, Kiro, you'll find I'm still very much untouchable. Untouchable, huh? Kiro said, stepping closer. I'll see about that. For a tense moment, the wind carried nothing but the sound of mechanical joints and the faint hiss of the hovercraft. Then Kiro turned and gestured toward the ridge. I don't need to destroy the town yet. I just need him. Alara realized the danger fully then. Jax's past was catching up with him, and she had unknowingly walked into the middle of it. She could see the flicker of pain cross his eyes. He had faced this before, and he knew the stakes. I won't let you take him, she said firmly. Jax's hand found hers. The contact was brief, grounding. Stay inside. Don't get involved, he warned. But Alara's defiance was part of her nature. She refused to turn away, refused to hide behind fear. She had already seen the man Jax truly was, the man beneath the untouchable rumors, and she would not abandon him now. Over the next few days, tension filled Dusthaven. Kiro's hovercraft stayed on the ridge, his eyes constantly scanning. Jax moved with silent precision, fortifying the settlement and preparing defenses. The townsfolk watched with a mix of fear and awe as the man they had once whispered about became their protector. One evening after the suns had set and the settlement was bathed in orange and purple twilight, Alara found Jax atop a ridge, examining the horizon with binoculars. She approached quietly. You can't keep this up forever, she said softly. He didn't look at her. I never said I could, I just know how to survive. She noticed the scars on his arms again, illuminated faintly by the light of the setting suns. Your scars, they glow sometimes. Why? He sighed, a sound heavy with memory. It's part of the modifications they did back in the war. Made me stronger, faster, but it wasn't supposed to be permanent. It's a reminder of what I lost and what I've survived. Alara reached out, placing a hand gently over his. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. Jax's gaze met hers for the first time in days. There was a flicker of vulnerability behind the steely calm. Most people can't handle the truth, he said quietly. I can, she replied simply. The connection between them grew, a quiet bond forming amidst the looming danger. That night, the quiet of the desert was broken by a low hum. Jax was already awake, moving to the edge of the settlement. Alara followed, curiosity mingled with concern. From the ridge they saw it, a small scouting drone, black and sleek, scanning the settlement. Kiro's reach extended beyond what they had realized. The drone moved with deadly precision, recording everything. They're watching, Jax said. They know we're here. Alara's heart pounded. What can we do? He studied the horizon, calculating, thinking. We prepare. We show them Dusthaven is not so easy to take. The next morning, Jax worked with the townsfolk to set traps and alarms. Miners, traders, and even a few travelers contributed to fortifying the town. Alara proved invaluable coordinating the efforts and boosting morale. She saw another side of Jax during this time, the quiet leader, the strategist, the man who fought not because he wanted glory, but because he had to protect what mattered. Over several tense days, Kiro's operatives tried subtle incursions, scouting parties, small attacks, and attempts at intimidation. Each time Jax anticipated them, countering with clever traps, quick maneuvers, and unmatched marksmanship. Dusthaven, once fragile and fearful, began to stand proud under his guidance. Through it all, Alara remained close, helping him, learning his methods, and seeing the depth of his character. She discovered that beneath the stoic exterior was a man shaped by loss, betrayal, and survival, but also capable of trust, loyalty, and unexpected warmth. One evening, after another long day of preparation, they sat together on the ridge, watching the twin suns dip below the horizon. The desert wind carried dust and the faint smell of burnt metal from the small forges scattered around the settlement. "Why do they want you so badly?" Alara asked. Jax's eyes darkened. "Because I know things they don't want the galaxy to know. And because I survived when I wasn't supposed to. Some people can't forgive that." Alara nodded, understanding. "Then we fight. Together." For the first time, Jax allowed himself to hope. He could survive battles alone, yes, but maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to anymore. With Alara at his side, there was a chance he could face what was coming, not just survive, but protect those he cared about. The night deepened, stars twinkling above the mesa. Dusthaven, though tense and wary, had a sense of readiness now. And Jax Maverick, the cowboy no one dared touch, allowed himself to feel something he hadn't in a long time. Connection. The secrets beneath the dust were dangerous, yes, but for the first time he felt that with Alara, he might not face them alone. The next storm was coming. He could feel it. Kirovant would not give up so easily. But for now, amidst the quiet of the desert night, Jax and Alara shared a simple truth. Trust and loyalty could stand even against the deadliest odds. And that bond, fragile yet strong, would be the spark that kept Dusthaven alive when the real fight began. The suns of Iron Mesa were setting, casting long shadows across Dusthaven. The wind carried a red-orange haze, making the cliffs appear like molten metal. Jax Maverick stood atop the ridge, scanning the horizon with sharp, unblinking eyes. His mechanical horse huffed steam, waiting patiently as he prepared. Below, the settlement was quiet, but the tension in the air was thick. The townsfolk had barricaded themselves inside homes and small shops, trusting Jax to protect them. Even the miners, who normally cared little for anyone's safety, had joined in, placing alarms and traps around the perimeter. Alara Voss emerged from the trading post, her hair tied back, her hands holding a satchel filled with tools and supplies. "They're coming," she said calmly, though her heart raced. Jax didn't answer at first. He was watching the ridge where Kirovant's hovercraft had landed days ago. The craft was gone now, but the scouts had been sending drones to monitor Dusthaven. "Soon," he said finally. "And when they arrive, we fight." Alara followed him to the edge of the mesa. The twin suns reflected off his scars, faintly glowing from his cybernetic enhancements. The sight reminded her that Jax was more than just a skilled fighter. He was a survivor, shaped by battles far beyond Dusthaven. By nightfall, the first wave came. Small hover vehicles carrying Kiro's operatives rolled down the mesa paths, headlights cutting through the dust. The town's alarms rang out, metal plates rattled, and improvised barricades shifted as townsfolk prepared to defend their home. Jax mounted his mechanical horse and spurred it forward. His laser revolver gleamed in the low light. "Stay behind me," he called to Alara, but she did not move. Instead, she grabbed a coil of rope and activated a signal flare, drawing attention away from the main street. Jax's gaze softened briefly. "I didn't say you could." "Don't worry," she said, a faint smile on her face. "I've got this." The first attackers reached the main street. Jax fired with precision, his shots hitting the engines of the hover vehicles, sending sparks and smoke into the air. The townsfolk moved quickly, using traps Jax had set, pits covered with dust, swinging metal plates, and tripwires connected to old mining explosives. Chaos erupted. Dust flew into the air, mingling with smoke and sparks. Screams echoed, but Jax kept moving, his mechanical horse leaping over debris, his revolver never missing. Each of his movements was deliberate, controlled, a deadly dance that few could hope to survive. Alara ran alongside him, using her tools to disable smaller drones and warn townsfolk of approaching attackers. She was fast, clever, and brave, traits Jax had noticed before, but now he saw them in the heat of battle. Despite the skill of Kiro's operatives, Dusthaven held. The attackers had underestimated Jax in the preparation he had done. Each wave they sent faltered, each attempt repelled with strategy and precision. Then came Kiro himself. He descended from a cliffside hover, his silver suit glinting in the firelight from the burning hovercrafts. He carried a compact energy rifle and moved with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. "Jax Maverick," Kiro called out. "You've made this difficult, but it ends tonight." Jax's hand went to his revolver, his eyes narrowing. "It only ends when I say it does." The two men faced each other across the debris-strewn street, the townsfolk watching from behind their barricades. The wind carried the faint hum of energy from Kiro's rifle, mixing with the hiss of Jax's mechanical horse. Without warning, Kiro fired. A blast of blue energy struck the ground near Jax, sending dust and rocks flying. Jax rolled to the side, firing back with a precision shot that cut through the controls of Kiro's hoverboard. Sparks flew as the board crashed into a metal wall. Kiro leaped to another hover, circling above Jax. "You can't hide forever," he shouted. Jax's eyes flashed, his cybernetic enhancements activating. Tiny lights pulsed along his scars, his reflexes heightened. He ducked and fired again, each shot carefully aimed to disable rather than kill, though the threat was clear. Alara shouted from the barricade, "Jax!" "The North Gate!" He glanced, saw the approaching operatives trying to flank the town, and reacted instantly. Leaping from his horse, he rolled into a crouch and fired, taking out the leading attackers. The townsfolk rushed to help, inspired by his fearlessness. Dusthaven, once fragile, was now a united force. Hours passed like this. Each wave was met with resistance, each attempt crushed. And yet, Jax could feel the fight was far from over. Kiro had planned this carefully. Every step, every strike calculated to test his skills. Finally, Jax faced Kiro directly again, both men exhausted but unyielding. The cliff edge provided the perfect battleground, a narrow space, dangerous for both. Kiro raised his rifle, ready to fire. "Last chance, Maverick," Kiro said. "Surrender or the town burns." Jax's gaze hardened. "I don't surrender." The duel began. Kiro fired first, but Jax was faster. He dodged and rolled, firing his revolver with unerring accuracy. Sparks and debris flew with every shot. The ground shook with explosions from misfired drones and collapsing barriers. Alara watched from the ridge, heart pounding. She knew the duel wasn't just about who was faster. It was about who had the will to protect what mattered. And Jax's determination shone brighter than any energy rifle. Minutes felt like hours. Kiro's attacks were relentless, but Jax anticipated each move, countering with skill honed over years of survival. Finally, with one calculated shot, Jax disabled Kiro's rifle, sending it spinning into the dust. Kiro staggered back, realizing the fight was over. "Impossible," he muttered. "You underestimated me," Jax said quietly, his voice carrying over the night. "You forgot what it means to fight for people, not power." Kiro's hover malfunctioned, and he was forced to retreat. The remaining operatives fled into the desert, leaving Dusthaven battered but standing. The townsfolk emerged from their hiding places, cheering and hugging each other. Jax stood in the middle of the street, chest heaving, covered in dust and sweat. Alara ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. "You did it," she said, relief flooding her voice. Jax looked down at her, a small, tired smile crossing his face. "We did it," he corrected. "You helped too. You saved more lives than I can count tonight." For the first time in days, Jax allowed himself to relax. He had faced Kiro, survived the impossible, and protected the town. But more importantly, he had realized that he wasn't alone anymore. As the twin moons rose over Iron Mesa, casting silver light over the desert, Jax and Alara stood together atop the ridge, watching the settlement. Dusthaven had survived the night, and the bond between them had grown stronger. "You know," Alara said, her voice quiet in the cool night air, "I think the town will start trusting you now." Jax chuckled softly. Maybe. Or maybe they'll just whisper less behind my back." She smiled. "Either way, I'm staying." Jax's eyes softened. "I'm glad." For the first time, the untouchable cowboy allowed himself to imagine a life beyond constant danger. The scars on his arms told stories of pain and survival, but now, under the stars of Iron Mesa, they also told a story of trust, loyalty, and the beginnings of something new. The night was far from over. Kiro would return, and more challenges would come. But for now, Dusthaven stood strong, and Jax Maverick, the cowboy no one dared touch, had found an ally, a partner, and perhaps a reason to fight for something more than just survival. As they descended from the ridge, the town behind them, Jax placed a hand gently on Alara's shoulder. "Rest now. Tomorrow we rebuild, and we prepare." Alara nodded. Together. And together they walked back into Dusthaven, ready to face whatever the desert and the stars might throw at them next. The suns rose slowly over Iron Mesa, spilling orange and gold across the rugged cliffs. Dusthaven was quiet, almost peaceful. After the attack, the town had spent the night repairing what could be fixed and burying the debris of the fallen drones and destroyed hovercrafts. The battle had left scars, but the spirit of the settlement remained intact. Jax Maverick stood on the ridge, overlooking the town he had fought to protect. The scars along his arms pulsed faintly, a reminder of the cybernetic enhancements that had saved him countless times. He breathed in the dry desert air, feeling the heat of the suns on his face, the wind tugging at his coat. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself a moment of stillness. Alara Voss approached from behind, her satchel in hand and dust on her boots. She had spent the early morning helping the townsfolk salvage materials, reinforcing buildings, and calming anxious neighbors. She reached Jax and stood beside him, watching the settlement below. "You did more than fight," she said softly. "You gave them hope." Jax nodded, his gaze still on Dusthaven. "I didn't do it alone," he replied. "You helped more than anyone knows. He paused, his voice unsteady for the first time. "I don't say this often, but I needed someone like you here." Alara smiled faintly, understanding. "You're not alone anymore, Jax. And you don't have to be." They descended together into the town, the residents watching quietly from their homes. The battle had changed everything. The whispers about Jax Maverick, the untouchable cowboy, had shifted. No longer did people speak with fear. Now, they spoke with respect, awe, and in some cases gratitude. Jax moved among them, helping to repair fences, check damaged vehicles, and reassure the frightened. His presence, once intimidating, had become a source of strength, and Alara was always at his side, her courage and resourcefulness shining in the midst of recovery. Later that day, a distant hum echoed across the mesa. Jax's eyes narrowed. From the horizon, a small group of hovercraft appeared. Not an attack, but a message. Kiro Vant had retreated, but he had sent a warning. Jax could not hide forever. The galaxy's reach extended even to Dusthaven. Alara noticed the tension flicker across Jax's face. "We can handle it," she said, squeezing his hand. "Together." He nodded, allowing himself a small, confident smile. "Together," he agreed. That evening they gathered the townsfolk for a meeting in the central square. Dust hung in the air, illuminated by lanterns and the fading light of the suns. Jax addressed the crowd. "I know many of you feared me when I first came here," he began. "You heard the stories, and some of them are true. I have fought wars, survived battles, and carried scars that don't always show. But I am not here to fight you. I am here to protect you. And now I ask you to trust not just me, but each other." A hush fell over the square. Jax looked at the faces before him. Miners, traders, travelers, and children who had hidden in their homes during the attack. "Dusthaven is not just a settlement," he continued. "It's a community, and communities survive when they stand together." Alara stepped forward, her voice joining his. "We have all seen what can happen when we work together. Dusthaven is stronger than we realized, and we'll keep it that way no matter what comes." The townsfolk murmured agreement, nodding, their fear replaced with determination. For the first time, Jax saw the true power of a united town, and he felt something he had not in years: hope. At night, after the meeting, Jax and Alara walked to the ridge once more. The twin moons rose over Iron Mesa, bathing the desert in silver light. "You've changed things," Alara said quietly. "The town, me, you've changed too." Jax looked at her, his eyes reflecting both fatigue and relief. "I thought I was untouchable," he said. "But you showed me that even someone like me can belong somewhere, can care about someone. Can trust." Alara placed a hand on his arm over the faintly glowing scars. "I see you, Jax. Not the stories, not the rumors. The real you." He swallowed, emotion catching him off guard. "I've spent so long hiding behind what people feared. I forgot what it was like to be seen." "You're seen now," she said firmly. "And I'm not going anywhere." The days that followed were filled with rebuilding. Dusthaven repaired homes, fixed machinery, and reinforced defenses. Jax trained a few of the townsfolk in basic combat skills, preparing them for future threats. He taught them strategies, marksmanship, and how to use clever traps, skills that would make the town self-reliant. Alara worked tirelessly as well, organizing supplies, coordinating repairs, and even setting up a small school for the children. She had become more than a trader. She was a leader, a partner, and a friend to everyone. Through it all, Jax remained at her side. The cowboy who no one dared touch had softened, not in skill or courage, but in heart. The scars he carried were no longer symbols of fear. They were marks of survival, resilience, and trust. One evening, as the suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold, Jax and Alara rode together on the mechanical horse. The desert stretched endlessly before them, quiet and beautiful. "Do you think Kiro will come back?" Alara asked. Jax shrugged, eyes scanning the horizon. "He might, but we're ready. And Dusthaven isn't just me anymore. It's everyone here. We'll face whatever comes together." Alara smiled, leaning slightly against him. "I like the sound of that." They rode in silence for a while, listening to the soft hiss of the horse and the gentle wind across the mesa. The night was calm, the stars bright, and for the first time both of them allowed themselves to imagine a future beyond battles and danger. As they returned to the settlement, Jax noticed something that made him pause: a small flower growing between the cracked stones near the post office. It was fragile, almost impossible in the harsh desert, yet it thrived. He turned to Alara, a small genuine smile on his face. "It's stubborn," he said. "Just like Dusthaven." Alara laughed softly. "And just like you," she replied. Jax looked at her eyes, softening. I guess I'm not untouchable after all. No, she said gently. You're human, and that's what makes you strong. The settlement had survived the attack, faced its fears, and learned to trust in one another. The untouchable cowboy had found a place to belong and a person who saw him for who he truly was. The twin moons of Iron Mesa rose high, casting silver light over Dusthaven. Jax and Alara stood together on the ridge, watching their home and the people who would become their family. The desert stretched endlessly, full of challenges, mysteries, and dangers yet to come. But for now, there was peace. Jax Maverick had faced his past, survived his enemies, and found trust, loyalty, and even love. He no longer rode alone. He had a partner, a town, and a future worth defending. Alara placed her hand over his. No matter what comes next, we face it together, she said. Jax nodded, feeling the weight of his past and the lightness of hope at the same time. Together, he agreed. And as the stars sparkled above Iron Mesa, the untouchable cowboy and the brave trader walked back into Dusthaven, ready for whatever the galaxy might throw their way. Their scars, their stories, and their bond were all they needed to face tomorrow, and they were stronger than ever before. The desert wind whispered around them, carrying the faint scent of dust and metal and the quiet hum of the mechanical horse. It was a world full of danger, but also full of possibility, and Jax Maverick, the cowboy no one dared touch, had finally found a place to call home.